claim in fact I'm responding to is the one saying that the SAT prevents deserving students from attending the university of their choice. The claims that supported that were the SAT discriminates against blacks and Latinos, and the essay exam is economically biased, and the third would be, if we did not have the SAT, then universities across the United States would have greater racial diversity. So going with the first claim, saying that the SAT does not discriminate against blacks or Latinos, evidence does actually show that blacks and Latinos do score lower on the SATs, more than the other groups that there are. But it does not mean that it's not possible to get into your dream school. I would question what constitutes a deserving student. I believe that someone who takes the time to study and even to demonstrate examples learned throughout schooling and life are deserved of a higher education. Saying if someone really wants to go to an Ivy League college, they should be preparing probably a year before you're getting ready to take the test. I know in high school you get opportunities as a junior to start taking classes or sample tests. Another response would be that the SAT is not economically biased. It was pointed in his speech that family of income with higher income have a significantly greater effect on the SAT scores. But one thing with the statistics is it doesn't put into effect on how the students put time into studying for the SATs. It is easy to chart the statistics, but then again, so there are over 280 top colleges and universities that de-emphasize the SATs as of fall 2017. There are test flexible and other test optional opportunities which help other colleges based on GPA or class rank. You can go on Amazon and buy textbooks that help prepare you for the SAT that range in price from $10 to $45, which would again help your opportunity of getting a better score on the SAT. With help from College Board, which is a mission-driven for nonprofit organization, they offer a free PDF. I found it was 121 pages of a student guide that helps prepare students on what to expect on the SAT, breaking down what it measures, the organization of it, and even how it is scored. It even gives you sample questions on what might be on the test. The third third claim would be the SAT does not affect racial diversity in colleges across the United States. In his speech, he says that there's evidence that the more prestigious colleges have higher percent of whites attending, but I believe they are that way because these kids have studied and gained those high SAT scores that help get them into the colleges. Colleges state and standardized testing requirements on their admission websites, saying you can go to the university of your choice and see what you need to get there. With clear goals and effective test prep, you can achieve your target scores and apply to schools where you have a strong chance of admission. Community colleges have open enrollment that let students take a placement test in math and English to determine their level in these classes. Yes, the SAT or ACT scores could exempt you from these tests and determine the placement. Community colleges offer usually a 2, maybe 3, depending on how crowded the school is, way to get an associate's, and you can then transfer to the college of your dream. I know personally, a girl that I worked with was the first of her family, Hispanic background, went to Citrus College and then transferred to UCLA. So it is possible to get to your dream school even if you don't score that well on the SAT.
Well, structurally, you start off pretty well labeling the main and the secondary claims, but kind of after that, there's not a. I got one clear label on the third point. The first and the second points sort of ran together when you were responding to them. On the first point, discrimination against blacks and Latinos, your argument is basically the argument that says, look, the tests are scored on the basis of what people accomplish and achieve on the tests. without any consideration of whether or not there is an influence, a social influence. Now, I'm not sure that you can deny that a social influence exists, but I think you do want to deny that what the SAT does is create that social influence. It simply reflects that social influence. And if people don't go to very good schools, maybe they don't do as well on the test. That makes a little bit of sense. But your argument seems to be, well, a determined student can accomplish anything they want, which I think is a good generic response, but I'm not sure that it addresses something that looks systemic. If large populations of blacks and Latinos are kept out of the highest quality schools, that doesn't sound like, what are you telling me, that blacks and Latinos are less determined students than other students are? I don't think that that's the inference that you want to be making. I think you need to maybe talk about the lack of opportunity that they get, not the test that creates the problem, but the opportunities or circumstances that they might live in. That, I think, might be a more effective way of arguing that particular point. The economic bias issue, you kind of talk about a small number of schools that are de-emphasizing the SAT. That's an okay response. As you go on, there are a couple of pieces of information here that talk about ways that people can prepare for the SAT that don't require a lot of information. You mentioned getting textbook assistance, and the textbooks are relatively inexpensive. They can get free assistance on the College Board site itself. That's okay. You mentioned early assistance in schools. I didn't hear any evidence about that, but I assume you're basing that on experience. People take the PSAT early on, or they have classes that are available. But that's, again, one of those things that I think comes down to if you get the opportunity. I don't know that all schools provide those kinds of opportunities, and it would be helpful if you had some information that suggests that that kind of preparation is fairly universal at the high school level. On the third point, on racial diversity, well, I don't remember what the advocate's evidence was on this particular point, but you have basically no evidence on this argument, and you just come back to the achievement standard there. But if the test is biased in some way, if people can't overcome that, that's a little bit of a problem. You have an interesting argument here where you've got a personal example, a friend of yours who has managed to use the community college system to be able to transfer to UCLA, an okay school. I don't know that I'd put them up there with Harvard and the Ivy League colleges. I'm sure that they'd think that way about themselves, but what are you going to do? And I think that's a good illustration. But there's a ton of information out there that talks about special programs that people can get into, assistance, diversity efforts, outreach programs. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here for arguments to be made that I think you just miss. You kind of go for the low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit isn't necessarily the strongest either. I think there's some things that you can build your argument up a little bit with. All right, thank you.